Hey guys, Adam here with AmericanMuscle.com. Today we're taking a closer look at and of course installing the Injen PowerFlow cold air intake in the wrinkled black finish, available for the 11 and newer 3.6 liter V6 Challenger. You should be looking at this if you're looking to ditch your factory air box to pick up an aftermarket intake to help your engine breathe a lot better, pick up some horsepower and torque figures, gain a better throttle response, and overall pull a lot more cold air into your 3.6. We all know those 3.6s could use a little bit of help in the power department, especially the throttle response department, and a cold air intake is one of the easiest things you can do under the hood, one of the simplest mods, and honestly one of the most affordable ones when it comes to a power adder. This is a complete bolt-on cold air intake that does not require a tune whatsoever, so all you gotta do is unbox it, uninstall your factory one, and install your Injen, and I'll be taking you through every single step of that process in this video. I want to let you know a couple of things about this Injen option here. Injen lets us know this is one of the first cold air intakes specifically tuned for your application that does not require a tune in the aftermarket. The intake tubing is a wrinkled black finish, a powder-coated finish over top of your aerospace grade 6061 T6 billet aluminum, mandrel bent to make sure that all of your airflow is streamlined. There's no kinks, there's no restrictions. Really good option, very much an upgrade over your factory one. You've got also an aerospace grade heat shield here, making sure you're trapping in that cold air and blocking out that engine bay heat while trapping it up against the inside of your hood. You've got all new couplers, you got new hoses, you have weather stripping to make sure that that does have a leak-free seal, but the main component of this whole kit is going to be the upgraded filter. This is a cotton filter, an oiled cotton filter at that is washable and reusable, so routine maintenance comes around, you can just pop this thing out, clean it, re-oil it, and throw it right back in. No need to pick up a new one every couple of thousand miles when that maintenance comes around. That filter, by the way, has an air inducer, velocity stack, and stabilizer all built in to streamline that airflow. As you can see at the top end here, it is a super nano filter, cotton filtered mesh. It's got a mesh screening on top, and it's got oil preset onto the filter right out of the box. So this filter is a huge upgrade over your factory one. It's got better filtration capabilities, which Injen lets us know is 99.53% effective, more so than your factory option. So you can definitely expect more filtration capabilities, especially with the oiled filter, which does help to trap some of that gunk from getting into your engine bay. And you're also going to expect a good increase in horsepower and torque. Injen does let us know that you can expect up to 14 horsepower and 18 foot-pounds of torque with this installed. Now, of course, we will not be dyno testing that, and they did not provide us with a dyno graph, but I will say that you can probably expect those numbers under the curve and single-digit peak gains. With that said, that is power you can feel with up to 14 and 18 torque under the curve. That's some low-end power that can definitely make a difference with your V6. And as I said in the beginning, we know the V6s could use a little bit of help. So having this installed and having those kind of numbers at the low end can make acceleration be something you can notice, and daily driving will definitely be a little bit more enjoyable. Now you can pick up everything you see here for the Injen PowerFlow cold air intake for right around 300 bucks, making it a very affordable power adder and bolt-on power adder at that for under the hood. Install wise, expect 1 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty meter. Since the cold air intakes are easy stuff to do under the hood, I'm going to take you through every step of the process. It'll take you about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on your experience. Have very simple hand tools on deck, however, and you can tackle it in the driveway at home. Without further ado, I want to take you guys through those steps. First thing we're going to do is put this table off to the side. I'm going to show you how to uninstall your factory airbox. We'll come back to the table and assemble some things with our Injen and then throw it in the car. Tools used for this install include an impact gun or a ratchet, 8mm and 10mm deep sockets, wire cutters, needle nose pliers, and a flathead screwdriver. Now the first step here for the uninstall, of course, we're just gonna pop off that factory engine cover. Really, you're just gonna lift straight up, it'll pop itself right out of position, and just set it aside to be reinstalled later. The next step here is to grab a flathead screwdriver or an 8mm socket and just loosen up the clamp holding your factory intake to the throttle body. From here, you should be able to twist that clamp upward to loosen it up and pull it straight off of that intake. At this point, we can just pinch and pull off the sensor right underneath of what connected to the throttle body and just set that aside. Next up, grab your 8mm socket. We're gonna remove the bolt right in front of your factory airbox. From there, we'll remove our crankcase breather line. But for now, grab your 8 socket and back this up. All right, set this aside to be reinstalled later. From here, we can go right to the other side of your factory heat shield and pull back on that crankcase breather line. Just disconnect that. And at this point, we can lift up the entire intake and set it aside. So we finally got that factory intake off of our V6 on the table next to the Injen PowerFlow cold air intake. And I know we already talked about the materials of the new cold air intake, but I wanted to give you guys some perspective on what that looks like sitting next to the stock entire intake. As you can see, there's just a night and day difference between the two, both in materials, the way it looks, and you can just see the difference in quality as well. This factory cold air intake is just one huge caterpillar of a material. It's got an accordion-like center here that flexes, and there's just a ton of room for restriction, air turbulence, especially in that heat shield there, which is just gonna get replaced with this. Now, I know this doesn't look like much, and I will say that this does a good job blocking out your factory engine heat, but this is gonna do an even better job of pulling in more cold air. You've got this factory induction on the bottom that pulls up from the bottom. This is just gonna be a lot more open. Now, the point of this is to make sure it goes straight down so all of the air coming underneath of the engine bay gets sucked up into here. But it's such a small intake opening, whereas this will leave all of that open. So that's something I really like about this particular option. We do have to move over a couple of things to our new cold air intake tubing from Injen, including the mass airflow sensor fitting, which is still on that factory intake. This, by the way, you can see a clear difference in the way the tubing is going to connect and wrap back around to the throttle body. This with the 6061 T6 billet aluminum is just going to be a night and day difference compared to that factory intake that does have a lot of that restriction. The mandrel bends are going to streamline that airflow wrapping around to the throttle body. Now, what I want to do here is flip this around and remove our fitting that our mass airflow sensor connected to and pop that onto our new one. I would love to show you guys the factory paper element filter inside of this heat shield, but we don't want to take all of this apart. You guys will know that this has that paper element from the factory, which is just not even remotely close to as good of a performance intake filter as the new one here. This filter, being a cotton oiled washable filter, is just a complete upgrade in every way, shape, and form. Without further ado, we're gonna pop off this fitting, swap it over to our new one. We have a couple of things to assemble, and then we'll be ready to install our Injen. All right, so like I said, this fitting is gonna come off of our factory intake. I've got my needle nose pliers to help me out. If you can use your hands, that's even better, but sometimes they are a little gunked on there. You just wanna get a good grip of this and twist it right off. With this up out of the way, we can set our factory intake aside and start assembling our Injen tubing. All right, from here with our Injen tubing, you want to flip it over and look at that pre-drilled hole, which is where the MAF sensor is going to go. We're going to slide this rubber grommet into place. Now, this can be a little bit difficult. There's a slot on the inside of the grommet that's going to seat into. Once you have that seated, you can insert your MAF sensor into place. You just want to make sure this is oriented, that the MAF sensor is angled properly on the inside. You can take a look at that and just angle it just like it was on the factory intake. The next step, we're going to take our smaller coupler and install that over the throttle body end of our intake tube. Going to seat that in so there's still enough room for the throttle body to clamp onto the other end. So you're going to go about halfway on, take one of the clamps, slide that on over it. Now this, you can use a flathead like we did when we uninstalled our factory airbox, but if you want to make life a little easier, you can grab an impact gun or a ratchet and an 8mm socket and just tighten these clamps up. At this point, we're going to do the same thing to the other end. Taking that larger coupler to the other end along with one of the larger clamps and do the same thing to tighten it down. It's about time we install this into our engine bay. All right, putting our first tubing into place on our throttle body, you want to make sure you have one of the additional clamps inserted over that coupler. Go ahead and rotate this onto the throttle body itself. Rotate that clamp so that you can see the bolt head and get access to it. You want to orient this tubing facing toward the rest of the tubing where you're going to install that, so just have that pretty much straight. Grab your flathead. I'm still finding it easier to use this 8mm socket. Just tighten that down. All right, once that's secured, we can move on to the rest of the tubing. So the next part gets a little tricky. Before we can install our intake tubing, we do have to install a Vibrator bump stop. That's gonna go right to this pre-drilled hole on our wheel well. You can see it sits right here. But in order to secure it, we're gonna use this M6 nut that's gonna thread onto the back end. In order to get this to thread onto the inside, you're gonna have to turn your driver's side wheel all the way to the left. Turn it outward. You can reach directly in there and thread this on by hand inside the wheel well. There's no need to uninstall anything. You don't even need a wrench. You just put your one hand on it, go right underneath, and thread this onto the inside of that stud. Once you have that nut threaded on, you can literally just hold it with one hand and twist the bump stop to get it tightened. No hand tools required inside of that wheel well. The next step would be for our heat shield to have our weather stripping in place. So grab the smaller 8-inch weather stripping and just feed it onto the side that's going to connect next to our reservoir. This whole thing is going to seat just like this. So we're going to want that weather stripping to be inside. This way we know we have a completely sealed off heat shield. So that's going to block out some of that engine bay heat. Now there is a bit of excess on the top here. You can grab some wire cutters and just snip that off. Now for the next step, we are going to take the longer portion, about 18 inches, and line the top here. Now you can do this all in one piece, going straight across, then down into this loop and back up. Or you can do the top portion here, cut it where it starts to dip down, and then do that piece separately. So I believe that's what we're going to do here. We're going to see what that looks like. Perfect. Now we can cut that top off. All right, now that we have our heat shield in place, you want to grab your M6 nut and just thread that on over with a washer to the vibrating bump stop that we put in our fender. That way, this is completely secured down. That'll get hand tight. Now we can do the same thing to the secondary bump stop to the top end of our heat shield. Now that factory screw that I said we were going to be reusing, you can actually set aside. The new kit has a bump stop included that's going to thread right down to that factory position, right over top of the heat shield bracket. Tighten that down by hand, get it nice and tight. The secondary intake tubing has a welded on bracket that'll attach to the top here, which will then install a washer and nut. Next step is that secondary tubing. You want to make sure that your hose fitting is facing the inside of the engine bay, while this bracket is going to hook around the stud on that vibrator bump stop. Insert the tubing with a secondary clamp over that coupler. Rotate it into place here. Once you have that in place, you can rotate that clamp back down. Make sure this seats into that bump stop. Use your 8mm socket or a flathead to tighten down this clamp. At this point, grab your filter with the clamp on the end here. Insert this down into position on the end of your secondary tubing. And again, grab that 8mm socket or a flathead and tighten the clamp down. From here, we're going to take that washer and our nut right over the bracket where the bump stop is. At this point, grab a 10mm socket and just tighten that down. You don't want to over tighten it, you don't want to strip it, but tighten it down so it secures. The next step is our hose. All right, this hose is going to go right on over the fitting on our intake. Push that all the way into position. Connect that to the other end of our factory tubing. All right, there's only 2 steps left. Step number 1, grab the MAF sensor harness. Just plug that back in. You'll hear a click when that's secured. Last step, grab the engine cover, throw it back on. For the engine cover, you just want to line up those securing holes, pressure all around, and you're good to go. Well guys, that's gonna wrap up my review and install for the Injen PowerFlow cold air intake in the wrinkled black finish. It's also available in a polished finish for the 11 and newer 3.6 liter V6 Challengers. You should pick yours up right here at AmericanMuscle.com.